is just about two bodies meeting, about skin brushing against skin, about desire igniting and burning out. We reduce it to a momentary physical exchange, a fleeting encounter driven by instinct. But when you're standing in front of the right person, when you truly meet someone who sees you beyond the surface, something far deeper unfolds. It's no longer about bodies. It's about energy. It's about something ancient and unexplainable stirring inside you, something you may have forgotten even existed. In that moment, intimacy becomes more than comfort, more than affection. It becomes a mysterious certainty. You don't know how to describe it. You can't point to any one thing, and yet deep within, something tells you. This person didn't arrive by chance. It's as if your soul, silent and patient for so long, suddenly finds its voice, but not through words. Even without speaking, even without exchanging a single sentence, something sacred is communicated. It's a spiritual resonance, a quiet confirmation that you're exactly where you're supposed to be. It feels like the two of you have been walking parallel paths for years, each seeking something undefined, carrying your own wounds, your own questions. And then suddenly, those lines intersect. You meet. And it's not just about sharing a moment of passion. It's about opening an invisible doorway between two inner worlds that recognize one another, nourish one another, and slowly begin to transform. Carl Jung once spoke of an ancient wisdom that awakens within us when we meet someone who touches the essence of who we are. And it's not just a poetic idea, it's a symbolic truth, a visceral experience. It's as if your entire unconscious mind rises to the surface and gently whispers, "There is something here you must live." Not something to analyze or understand logically, but something to feel with your entire being. Something that shakes you, breaks you open, and puts the pieces back in a new order. That's why, with some people, intimacy becomes sacred. It's no longer just about surrendering your body. It's about unveiling your soul with a rawness that is both terrifying and liberating. With the right person, your soul is no longer afraid to be seen. You don't feel the need to hide, to pretend, to filter your truth. You exist in your most honest form, stripped of armor, completely exposed, and yet completely safe. It's as if this connection creates a sacred container, a space where you can let go of every mask, every defense. Not just physically, but emotionally, spiritually, energetically. And that kind of connection doesn't happen every day. In fact, many people go through life without ever experiencing it. Not because they don't want it, but because they settle. They settle for shallow connections, for temporary warmth, for relationships that never touch the core of who they truly are. But when you finally meet someone who awakens your vital energy, something shifts. Your heartbeat changes rhythm, your breath synchronizes with theirs. Your mind, usually filled with noise, suddenly goes quiet. You're not just feeling desire, you're feeling presence. The deep, undeniable presence of being exactly where you're meant to be. And in that moment, even if everything else fades away, you just know. You know that something profoundly spiritual is unfolding, something you can't explain, but you also can't deny. And the truth is, this kind of connection doesn't always arrive in a perfectly wrapped package. Sometimes it arrives like a storm. It brings confusion, fear, vulnerability. Because when someone touches your soul, they also touch your wounds. They stir the parts of you that you've kept hidden, even from yourself. And that can be overwhelming. But even amidst the chaos that intimacy with the right person can awaken, there is clarity, a calm in the center of the storm that whispers, "This is real." Because this connection serves a purpose greater than comfort, greater than romance. You're not here just to enjoy or to suffer. You're here to transform. True intimacy with the right person acts like a mirror, showing you who you really are when no one's watching. It strips away every illusion, every performance, every layer you've built to survive. And sometimes, what it reveals is hard to look at. But if you're brave enough to face it, if you allow yourself to feel it fully, without judgment or escape, then something begins to heal. Because what happens in that moment is not just emotional, it's deeply spiritual. It's an internal reconfiguration. It's as if, in recognizing yourself in the other, your soul begins to remember its original shape, a shape that had been distorted by years of fear, trauma, denial. And no, it's not about the other person saving you. That's the illusion many fall for. It's about the other person helping you remember. Because when you're with the right soul, you don't lose yourself. You find yourself. They don't consume you. They illuminate you. And perhaps the most beautiful thing of all is that this encounter doesn't give you something new. It awakens what was already within you. It activates a truth that had been lying dormant, waiting for the right energy to bring it to life. And here's a truth most people are afraid to accept. Not every intimate connection transforms, but when it does, you feel it, not just in your skin, but in your breath as it slows down, in your mind as it finally stops fighting, in your soul as it no longer needs to search. Because when you're with that person, your inner world no longer needs to be on guard. You're not protecting anymore. You're allowing. You're surrendering to what is. There's no more need to play roles, to hide your pain, to pretend you've got it all together. With them, intimacy isn't just an act. It's a sacred ritual, a sacred disarming, where you're not breaking apart. You're beginning again. And the most mysterious part? The body knows before the mind does. It recognizes the frequency. It senses the alignment. Maybe that's why, when you're near someone who vibrates with you, you don't need logic. You don't need explanations. It just happens. There exists a language that doesn't rely on words. It's more like a silent agreement, a secret understanding between your deepest memories and the soul of someone else. You didn't plan for it. You didn't wait for it. Yet somehow it finds you. And when it does, the things that once seemed so important, the things you chased or tried to control, start to lose their grip on you. The need to have control fades. The urge to force things to happen vanishes. You begin to see clearly that the soul has never followed a schedule, or obeyed rules, or checked off boxes on a list. It has only ever waited, silently, patiently, for the one moment when it can finally recognize itself in another. And when that moment arrives, something sacred begins. Every intimate experience turns into an act of healing. Not because the other person fixes you, but because they offer you the space to truly see yourself. And deep down, isn't that what we're all searching for? To be seen, not through our appearance, not through our needs, but through our soul. To be touched, not by hands that seek to possess, but by eyes that know how to hold space. When that happens, when you feel safe enough to show your truest self, even the parts you usually hide, that's when the transformation begins. Without realizing it, that person becomes a catalyst. They didn't come to complete you. They came to awaken something in you. And you didn't arrive to fill in their gaps either. You came to remember, because everything you needed was already inside of you. You had just forgotten. You had gotten lost in expectations, in fears, in old wounds that never healed. And then, out of nowhere, someone shows up. They don't promise answers. They don't wrap you in guarantees. But their presence alone inspires the right questions. They don't offer you safety, but they ignite the courage in you to stop running. They don't save you, but they walk beside you while you save yourself. And that is true intimacy, a space where two people dare to be real. Not perfect, not whole, just real. In that space, wounds aren't hidden. They're spoken aloud, with tenderness. Silence doesn't feel awkward. It holds you. Bodies aren't used to cover pain. They become bridges between two inner worlds, finally ready to meet. With that person, there's no rush, no pretending, no games to make someone like you. There's truth, there's presence, there's soul. There's something beautifully mysterious that happens when intimacy stops being a distraction and starts becoming a path to expansion. You're no longer consumed by passion out of fear of being abandoned. You don't give yourself away so someone won't leave. You don't seduce so you'll be chosen. You simply exist. And what emerges from that is something no one can fake. It's something you feel deeply, something you honor, something you protect. Because with the right person, the spiritual doesn't have to be imposed. It reveals itself. It doesn't have to be planned. It unfolds naturally. And without even noticing it, you begin to change. The way you look at yourself, the way you live inside your own body, the way you breathe. You feel lighter, more connected, more alive. And then you understand, not every connection is the same. Some people brush up against you and then leave, but there is one, just one, that when they touch you, unlocks the door to your soul. There is a kind of intimacy that can never be forgotten, not because it was flawless, but because it was real, because it reached parts of you that even you had forgotten existed, parts that don't awaken with just anyone, because they are guarded by time, by pain, by all the layers your soul has built to survive. And yet somehow, this person arrives, and without even knowing it, without asking permission, they find their way to the deepest corners of your being. They don't burst in. They enter gently. They see you. They listen. They stay. The spiritual doesn't always come with sparks or lightning. Sometimes it's the stillness that tells you something sacred is happening. A different kind of stillness, one that doesn't numb or distract, but one that holds you. With this person, intimacy doesn't leave you questioning. It brings clarity. You don't feel insecure around them. You feel more like yourself. It's like your shoulders finally relax, like your body, after years of internal battles, can finally rest. You're not trying to prove anything. You're not trying to meet expectations. You're just breathing, feeling, living something that your soul has known long before your mind ever did. In that shared space, something begins to settle, not out there, but inside of you. And you realize that maybe, just maybe, it wasn't a lack of love that hurt you in the past. It was the habit of giving yourself away in places where you were never truly seen, where your presence was tolerated but never cherished, where your soul was invisible behind someone else's desire. But now, faced with this unexpected connection, you begin to understand that true intimacy doesn't demand sacrifice. It doesn't test you. It invites you. And in that invitation, something new begins to rise within you. Not a better version of you, but a truer one. More connected, more whole. That person didn't come to rescue you from yourself. They came to remind you that you never needed rescuing in the first place, that everything you are, with your light, with your wounds, with your doubts, is worthy of love. And then something shifts inside you. Something loosens, like an invisible rope you've been holding tightly for years is finally released. And you breathe fully, maybe for the first time in a long time. This is not about magic, it's about truth. And when truth is experienced in intimacy, it becomes sacred. You might not understand why that connection moves you so deeply. You might even try to fight it, to resist it, to question it, or explain it away. But it's pointless. What the soul recognizes, the mind cannot erase. Deep within, you know this is not ordinary. This is not just another encounter. It is something else. Something that quietly shifts the ground beneath your feet. It is a doorway, a possibility, a mirror that reflects not only who you are, but who you could become if you have the courage to follow that thread of profound connection. Real intimacy doesn't end with physical closeness. It lingers. It remains in your body, in your thoughts, in your breath. It nestles into your heart and starts to change you without asking for permission. Suddenly, you see yourself differently. You speak to yourself with a softness that once felt foreign. You begin to move through the world with a new grace, not because you're trying to impress anyone, but because you've stopped needing approval. You've started to experience presence, and that changes everything. With the right person, time no longer makes sense. Seconds stretch into eternity. You feel more in one glance, in one quiet moment, than you ever did in years of trying with someone else. And it's not because the other person is perfect, it's because you are ready. Both of you have arrived at the same crossroad, stripped of expectations, without masks, without fear. And when that happens, it doesn't matter how long it lasts. What matters is what it awakens, what it reveals, what it leaves behind. Not everyone is ready for this level of intimacy. Many sabotage it without even realizing, not because they don't crave it, but because it terrifies them. It exposes them. It demands truth. Because when someone truly sees your soul, you can no longer hide behind your achievements, your well-rehearsed smiles, your polished arguments. You are laid bare. And if you're not prepared to face who you really are, it's easier to look away, to run, than to hold that gaze. That's why some people disappear, just when things are becoming real. It's not rejection, it's fear. Fear of being touched in places no hand has ever reached. Fear of being seen in a way that goes beyond the skin, beyond the stories. But you are not here to repeat old patterns. You are here to break them. You are here to choose differently, to give yourself permission to live something that defies logic, because you're already feeling it in every part of your being. And when you stop guarding yourself from love and start living inside it, your soul begins to vibrate in a completely new frequency, one that no longer fits into transactional relationships or superficial bonds. It resonates only with truth, with what feeds you, with what transforms you. That's when you realize that spirituality isn't a distant concept or some mystical illusion. It's happening right here, right now, between breaths, between pauses, in the silence shared between two people, in the way someone touches you without possession, in the way they listen to you without interruption, in how they look at you when you're doing nothing at all, just being. And those small, quiet moments, when they are real, are worth more than 1,000 promises, because they're not trying to persuade you. They're simply walking with you. And walking with you doesn't mean carrying your weight or fixing your wounds. It means being beside you, knowing that both of you are holding space for something sacred. In that space, you don't need to have all the answers. You don't need to be strong all the time. You can cry without shame. You can laugh without restraint. You can be yourself without apology, without performance. When you experience this kind of intimacy, you begin to understand that the body is no longer a weapon or a lure. It becomes a vessel for something higher, a bridge to spiritual expression. Every touch becomes intentional. Every breath shared holds meaning. Every pause between moments of closeness becomes sacred. It's all speaking to you, not in words, but in recognition. You feel it, not because it makes logical sense, but because your soul remembers it. Maybe you dreamed of it in silence. Maybe you never had the words, but now you're living it. And even as the world outside keeps spinning, you no longer feel the urge to chase it. You stay here. You're not rushing toward the future, nor are you running from the past. You are rooted in this moment, and for the first time, you feel like you truly belong. This is not a coincidence. This is a response to every wound, every release, every lesson that has led you here. This is the moment your soul has been preparing for all along. This kind of connection isn't something you go out searching for. It's something you allow. It arrives quietly, without warning. And when it does, you don't need to fully understand it to recognize its truth. It doesn't demand explanation, nor does it need validation. It simply exists, and somehow your whole being knows it's real. There's no resistance, no internal debate, just a deep, inner knowing that something profound has entered your life. You don't need to analyze it, you just need to allow it. Because what is real does not shout, does not force, does not impose. It stays, it remains, it settles into your life like it was always meant to be there. And you know it, because something inside of you aligns, clicks into place, and suddenly, nothing less than that will ever be enough again. Experiencing something like this changes you in ways you can't always explain. You are not the same person afterward. Something subtle but irreversible shifts within you. It's like discovering a melody that had been quietly playing in the background of your soul for years, unnoticed until now. It's not something you can put into words. It's something you feel, something you live. And once you've tasted this depth, this level of emotional resonance, you can no longer pretend that shallow connections are enough. You become aware of what truly touches your spirit, what elevates you, what awakens you. And from that moment forward, your soul refuses to settle for anything that doesn't move you to your core. Because now you know that not all bonds are created equal, that not all nearness is real intimacy, that some people don't just touch your skin, they touch your past, your fears, your untold stories. They reach into the silent corners of your being and offer a kind of presence that transcends time, pain, and logic. They arrive where you need them the most, often without even knowing the depth of the healing they bring. This kind of intimacy cannot be measured by how often you see each other or how long you've known each other. It's measured by the depth it reaches, by the mark it leaves on your soul, by how deeply it reconnects you with yourself, with that version of you that you may have forgotten, the one you left behind somewhere along the way, buried under responsibilities, under expectations, under the weight of surviving. In their presence, your essence finally feels welcomed home. You no longer feel the need to hide your thoughts. You don't have to bury your uncomfortable emotions. You are free to speak from your center, to hold someone's gaze without lowering your eyes, to breathe without apologizing for taking up space. That's the kind of freedom that transforms, not the freedom to do anything, but the freedom to be, to exist fully, truthfully, without fear of rejection. And when someone offers you that, without asking for anything in return, without pressure, without manipulation, you're standing before something sacred, something that demands reverence, because authenticity is delicate, and when it reveals itself, the least we can do is honor it. It doesn't mean everything will be perfect. Perfection is never the point. What matters is the truth within it, the space to be imperfect together, the ability to weather the sunny days and the storms without retreat. A connection like this doesn't vanish at the first sign of difficulty. It deepens, it strengthens when both people choose to stay, to listen, to speak from the heart rather than the ego. And that, right there, is rare. That is priceless. That is what the soul recognizes as home. Sometimes, in the quiet closeness with the right person, things begin to rise to the surface. Feelings you haven't allowed yourself to feel in years, or maybe ever. Tears you didn't know you had stored inside. Sighs you forgot how to release. There's something about that connection that awakens old memories, some that are yours, some that feel ancient, almost ancestral, and you don't even need to understand them for them to feel heavy. Your body just knows. It knows that in this space, it is safe to let go, safe to collapse for a moment, safe to stop carrying what it has carried for far too long. And that release isn't weakness, it's healing. It's the truest kind of surrender, not one that means defeat, but one that brings liberation. You realize that the most spiritual experience you've ever had was not in a ritual, or in a temple, or in a distant mystical vision. It was in the stillness of being with another human being, skin to skin, soul to soul, breathing in sync with someone who demands nothing from you, but changes everything simply by allowing you to be. And in that shared presence, something sacred happens. Recognition. The deepest recognition that can occur between two souls. You see each other. Not the surface, not the mask, not the roles you've learned to play. You see the essence. And after something like that, after experiencing that depth of intimacy, you can never look at connection the same way again. You don't need proof. You don't need certainty. You simply feel. And in that feeling, you find a peace that no logic can ever offer. A quiet, deep knowing that doesn't scream to be justified. It just is. And something inside you begins to shift. Slowly, silently, without any great effort, you begin to choose differently. Not out of whim, not out of fear, but because you've already tasted what's real. You've touched what's deep, what nourishes you. And once you've been there, you can't go back to less. Your standards are forever changed. It's no longer about finding someone who merely desires you. It's about finding someone who sees you, someone who stays, someone who holds you, listens to you, especially in the moments when you can't find the words to explain what you're feeling. Someone who doesn't run when your spirit starts to rise, when the connection between you begins to touch every part of your life. Because when intimacy is true, when it's sacred, it doesn't try to remake you into someone else. It brings you back to yourself, to who you really are when you're not pretending, to what you feel when you're not hiding, to what you dream when no one is watching. And in that space, your space, so intimate, so sacred, so truly yours, you begin to understand something profound, that love is not a destination. It's a state of being. It's a way of inhabiting life. It's how you breathe each moment with awareness, how you honor your soul and the soul of another, without fear, without masks, without walls. If you've ever experienced this, then you already know. And if you haven't yet, don't worry. Don't rush. These kinds of encounters don't come by force. They don't come early. They come when you're truly ready to hold them. They come when you've healed enough not to seek from emptiness, but from wholeness. When you're no longer giving yourself away in hopes of being chosen, but because you already chose to love yourself first. And from there, everything changes. Everything begins. And if anything you just heard resonated with you, if something stirred in you, if something softened, or lit up, or cracked open, even for a second, then I want to invite you to become part of something greater. Because this space, right here, it's more than just a channel. It's a meeting point for souls, for those who want to go beyond the surface, for those who feel that something deep inside them is ready to awaken. You're here for a reason. So share this message with someone who needs to hear it, with someone who might have forgotten what it means to truly be touched by presence, by truth, by love. Leave your thoughts in the comments. Tell me what part moved you. What did you feel? What did you remember? Because your words might just be the mirror that another soul needs to recognize itself. And if you haven't subscribed yet, now's the time. Be part of this community, this living, breathing space where every message is a bridge to a more conscious life, a more real life, a life that is truly yours. Hit the bell icon so you don't miss what's coming next, because this is just the beginning. Together, with every voice, with every story shared, we can touch more hearts, we can awaken more souls, and we can remind each other of a truth we've always known deep down, that the spiritual isn't somewhere in the sky or someday in the future. It's here, now, in how we choose to love, to look, to hold, and to live, moment by moment, with truth. Thank you for being here.